Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca. If you haven't been here before, welcome. So today's video is actually going to be an extension of last week's video. I did a video last week about Only Murders in the Building, a TV show on Hulu with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez as the main three actors, and a ton of people were really into it. I'm really into the show, so I decided why not continue and talk a little bit more about this series. Right now we have just finished with episode 8, so if you have not seen episode 8 yet, then I suggest you pause this and come back later. You can go watch my last video. I'll make sure to link it up here, or it's possibly up here, but I think it's up here. And so if you've only seen up through 6, my last video is all the way through 6, and then we are going to talk today about episode 7 and episode 8, and maybe do a little bit of a recap of what we know now and who I suspect is the murderer with all the new information we have. So, not gonna lie, these newest 2 episodes totally disproved some of my theories, but I am not downtrodden by this because we got some new great clues and I'm excited to share it with all of you. So, let's get into it. So let's start with what we know. So we know who pushed Zoe off the building. We know that it was Theo, whether he actually pushed her or whether she, you know, fell when he was grabbing her and she pulled away too hard and she fell backwards. You know, whether it was intentional, unbeknownst to us, but we know Theo was involved. We know that Theo and Teddy are grave robbers, that is how Teddy makes most of his money, and that he is stealing jewelry from people who are about to be buried with this important jewelry, essentially because, you know, that jewelry would never be seen again by anyone. He knows that no one will ever report it stolen or missing, and he knows he can sell it without, you know, too much flack. So they are grave robbers, and we know that Tim Kono was poisoned, which was something that I mentioned in the last video. So the first thing I kind of want to do is go through some of the new clues I've pulled out of the series. I rewatched episodes 1 through 8 to go through and see if I missed anything. So if you want to see the original clues that I have discussed that are still important to the series, then go check out the last video I posted, because I don't want to repeat all of them for those of you who are here the second time. So the first clue that I didn't mention last time that I viewed this time when I was looking through was a note written by Oliver. So handwriting has kind of a big function in this show because there are so many secret notes written and we don't know who they're written by. So whenever we get a character's handwriting, it's a really great moment to compare and contrast no matter who they are. So we have Oliver's handwriting in episode 2. He writes a note that says, "Quiet please, recording," on the closet door, and he and Charles are inside recording the first episode of the podcast. So Mabel comes in and she pulls the note off the door. It's actually written on the back of the notification that they're holding a ceremony for Tim Kono in the lobby. So it's kind of ironic that Oliver didn't even read that. He just wrote the note on top of this random piece of paper. But we can see that he's written the note in all capital letters, and it's just an interesting facet that I will bring up a little bit later in the video. So the next clue we have is Tim's note. And I'm not talking about the notes that Mabel, Charles, and Oliver found in the garbage can. I'm actually talking about the note that said GM 1/31 at 4:30 p.m. Shore Road. So this is the first time that we have a piece of paper that we can almost definitively say is Tim's handwriting. It's possible that someone delivered the note to him and said, you know, here's your meeting time, go meet this person. But we're, you know, if we're really going to take a guess, we can say we can think that this is probably Tim's handwriting. So that's the second clue that I didn't bring up last time. The third clue that I want to bring up is that Winnie was poisoned, which we know, which we talked about last time. But if we look at the floor, we can see that she was poisoned by some kind of dust. There's like this dust sprinkled over the floor on top of her bone, and she's kind of having a hard time breathing. So we didn't specify when Winnie was poisoned what exactly she was poisoned by and how. So that is another clue. Number 4, the clue we have is that we know Jan's last name. Her last name is Bellows, B-E-L-L-O-W-S. We can see it on her door frame, the name underneath the letter of the room that she's living in. And we can also see it more recently and more clearly when she is collecting the note from her front door and going inside after being threatened. So we know her last name is Bellows. I think that that's a relevant clue. The next clue we have is the check that Teddy Demas gives Oliver and Charles. Now, we did talk about the check last time, but something that I didn't talk about but did write in a note on the video screen was that the check is signed by someone and it doesn't look like that signature is Teddy Demas's. As far as I can tell, the check seems to be J.B something. So is this suspicious because we know that Jan's initials are JB? I'm going to be honest, it doesn't look like the signature says Bellows. If anything, it looks like Bosall, like B-O-S-A-L-L. If anyone else wants to take a guess at the signature on the check, drop it down in the comments below. You guys know that I love to hear what you think. And I just thought that was interesting because why would Teddy be handing over a check that he didn't even sign? Then we have the toxicology report, which was the biggest clue that we got in this episode. So not only did it let us know that Tim was murdered and that he was poisoned, but it also let us know how. And I think that this is really, really essential for the episode and gives us some sight into another theory that I now have. So how was Tim poisoned? Well, he had acute secobarbital intoxication. We can see that in the final diagnosis, and we can also see that more specifically in the report. So in the report, it lets us know that they found it in his blood. They let us see his blood alcohol level. They let us see the secobarbital level. We can see that he's taking fluoxetine, which is basically the same thing as like Prozac, often used for people with anxiety, depression, or OCD. The first question is, what is secobarbital? We have to know what that is in order to understand what is even going on. According to Google, secobarbital is a sedative and it can treat trouble falling asleep like insomnia. It can also make patients sleepy before surgery or medical procedures. So it seems like it's a pretty heavy sedative that is used for people who are really struggling with sleeping or to sedate people before surgery. So that's what we're looking at. So now the next question would be, why is Tim taking this substance and why did it kill him? So secobarbital, we know that it's a substance, we know that it's something that people actually can take, it's not just a straight up poison, but too much of it can become toxic and kill you. When I looked it up, it says that the amount of secobarbital that would be lethal in someone's blood is 40 to 60 ml, and in Tim's toxicology report, we see that he has 86 ml of secobarbital. So that is like a super lethal dose. That was way too much secobarbital for him. Even if it was prescribed to him, like if he was an insomniac and he was taking it because he was supposed to be taking it, for some reason that dosage was way too high. The other thing that we can see is that secobarbital is fatal when it is taken with other medications that cause drowsiness, which there were a list of medications there that were also sedatives. And we can also see that if you take secobarbital, you should not have severe breathing problems. So Tim, we know, has asthma, so the fact that he's taking secobarbital is really dangerous because he does have severe breathing problems, and secobarbital is also not supposed to be consumed with alcohol, and Tim has 0.09 g% ethanol in his bloodstream, which is above the legal limit for driving. So he was intoxicated enough to not be able to drive a car, and he's also consuming an amount of secobarbital that would be lethal to him. So all this to say that not only did he take too much secobarbital, which would have killed him in the first place, but he also has multiple other types of medications that are also sedatives and could hurt him, and he's also drinking alcohol, and he also is asthmatic. So all of these 4 things together are like a quadruple threat in killing Tim Kono. So the question is, why does Tim Kono have secobarbital in his bloodstream? And who would have access to that kind of drug to be able to give it to him and poison him? Now I have an answer. So let's think about this. I want you to fully understand where my theory is coming from and why I'm thinking the way I am. So who do I think murdered Tim Kono? So based on what we know, I don't think that Theo or Teddy were involved in murdering Tim Kono. In episode 8, we see Teddy say that they don't know shit about Tim Kono. So I really believe that the Demuses actually don't know anything about Tim Kono's death. That's why they even invested in the podcast in the first place, because it was an investigation of Tim's murder, which they weren't involved in or weren't aware that they were involved in. So do I think that the Demuses had something to do with it? I don't think that they killed Tim Kono. There are only a few people who I would say can really be suspects in this murder, and here's why. I think that if we're going to say that someone murdered Tim Kono in a series like this that's so well thought out with so many clues, everything has meaning in these episodes, you really have to look at everything like it's important. I don't think that they're going to bring in an outside character that really hasn't been talked about or hasn't been mentioned and say that they're the killer. So I think that the person who is the killer is going to have been in quite a few episodes and be a prominent figure even now. So could you say that you maybe think it's Howard? Maybe, but he was in like 1 or 2 episodes in the beginning and now he's really not. Could you say that it's Sting? I don't think so. And obviously, your guess is as good as mine. We do not know. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going to assume that they aren't going to do that to us, because the whole point of this murder mystery is that we have a chance at guessing who did it. And we don't have a chance if we didn't really get to know the characters. So there are only 2 characters left that I believe are worthy of being the killers. And those are Jan and Oscar. So I think that it's either Oscar or it's Jan. And at the end of the day, my gut is still telling me that I think the killer is Jan. And I'm going to explain to you why. But I have a different theory this time, so don't worry. So the first thing we're going to start with is that we can hear Jan playing at the beginning of episode 1 before the fire alarm goes off. We talked about this last time. This is episode 1. This is the first time we hear the bassoon being played throughout the building. So we know that she's there the night of the murder. Now in episode 2, we see that Dr. Grover Stanley is desperate, according to Oliver, to get people to come to therapy with him. Maybe he's low on funds, but he's basically offering that people come to his apartment room 6C to have therapy with him. Maybe he's low on money, maybe he's, struggling with whatever. We don't know exactly, but that's the first time we see Grover Stanley, and we see him a few times throughout this series. Not enough to make me think he's the killer, but enough to make me consider that he might have something to do with this. Episode 3, like I said, we see that Winnie is poisoned with a dust of some sort. So I believe that Jan murdered Tim Kono. I believe that she is related to the Demuses. If you saw my last video, then you'll know why I say that. I'll pop the photo up here, but there is a picture in Teddy and Theo Demus's apartment of a young blonde child and a young brunette child. Blonde child looks like a girl, brunette looks like a boy. So I feel like that is Teddy and Jan, and that they are related somehow. So she's related to the Demuses, and she is working with them through their grave robbing. She is actually the face of the organization. She's the one selling the jewelry. She's the one who is Angel. So I still think that Jan's Angel. Yes, Teddy and Theo are doing the grave robbing, and yes, they have the account with Angel Inc. that's making the money, but I think at the end of the day, Jan is actually the face. She is Angel. She is the one who is taking those jewels and selling them on the black market after Teddy and Theo rob the graves. And in a way, this actually gives Teddy and Theo some separation from the black market, and it actually protects them a little bit in some way, which seems like something Teddy would do, is like create another figure outside of them that could take the fall should someone figure out that these black market jewels are being, stolen from people. So that seems like something Teddy would do, is like set in place some barriers to protect himself. So we know that Jan and Charles have a relationship. We know that they slept together and that she is helping them, helping them to figure out who murdered Tim Kono. But when the Demos's name is brought up, she continues to deflect over and over again, suggesting that there isn't proof that they did it, and also pointing the finger towards Howard again. Now the question is, what does Jan gain from protecting the Demoses? And I think that if she's working with them, if she's related to them, even if she's not related, even if she's just working with them and she is the face of Angel, that is her income at risk. They are the ones who are supplying her with those jewels. They're basically her supplier. So if she isn't getting those jewels from them, then she isn't selling those jewels on the black market, and then she isn't making the money that she was before. So she doesn't want the Demoses to go to jail, and she doesn't want her business to be put at risk like that. So she's trying to deflect and point fingers elsewhere. The other thing is that if Jan is the face of Angel, then she's actually more at risk than the Demoses of being put in jail, because if anyone is to figure out who's selling these jewels, then Jan is the one who's going to take the fall because she is Angel. So like I said, this would protect Teddy and Theo in some ways. So Officer D brought up that we need to know the who, how, why, and why now. So my who is Jan Bellows. My how is that she poisoned Tim Kono. I'm going to get more into that in a moment, the how. The why is because Tim was threatening her business with the Demoses. He thought that if he found the green ring that Zoe was wearing, that he could prove that the Demoses had something to do with her death and clear Oscar's name and put the Demoses in jail. So he's searching to prove that the Demoses had something to do with Zoe's death, and he must have known that the ring, was important or illegal or something. He might not know that Jan is actually the face of Angel, that she is the one that he is in contact with. He thinks that he's going to be putting the Demoses away, whereas all the work that he's doing is actually putting Jan at risk more than the Demoses, because if Tim exposes the black market jeweler, Angel, who he's actually exposing would be Jan. And the reason that I think this theory is so strong is a few things. First of all, why would Teddy and Theo not be concerned that Tim was looking into their jewelry business? Like, why would they not be concerned that Tim was looking for Angel? And this is why I think that Angel, the actual jewelry dealer, has to be somebody else. Teddy and Theo either have no idea about where the jewelry goes after they sell it. They just get their money and then the next person sells it off. Or they know that they probably won't be implicated in this jewelry theft because they know that the actual face of Angel is somebody else. That's why I think that Jan is Angel. Because why would the Demoses not be concerned about Tim searching for Angel and trying to bring Angel down? Those were his own words. Well, what Tim didn't realize was that the Demoses aren't Angel. They're just supplying Angel with these jewels. And this gives a level of separation between them, a level of protection. Because if Tim brings down Angel, he brings down Jan. And they can back away and cover up their footsteps and act like they had nothing to do with it. And they have no idea what's happening. Whereas Jan is directly implicated if Tim brings down Angel, because she is Angel. So that's why Jan murdered Tim. And that's also why she murdered him now. Because her relationship to Tim has nothing to do with Zoe's death. She doesn't know that he's trying to bring her down because he's trying to implicate the Demoses in Zoe's death. All she knows is that he now has enough evidence because he's bought the ring from Cutter. We know that he had the ring before he died. So we know that this has finally come to be enough proof that he can bring Angel down. And because of this, Jan says, well, he's threatening me, he's threatening my business, I'm the one who's going to go to jail for this, so she murders him. So that's why I believe that Jan is Angel, that's why I believe that Jan killed Tim, and that's where we are so far. So now we have to get to the how. How did Jan murder Tim? And now this is where the therapist comes in. Where would someone get these sedatives and drugs? Who could prescribe such a thing? A therapist. Now, when Mabel first meets Tim, she says that he is playing a game that he has to play every single day. So that kind of behavior is very in line with someone who would have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, doing something every day the same. We know that Tim was the type of person who couldn't let things go. He was obsessed with bringing Teddy and Theo down after seeing Theo murder Zoe. So it's very likely, it's possible that Tim has some form of OCD. He probably has anxiety based on the trauma that he went through when he saw Theo murder Zoe. We know that he had Prozac in his system, a normal dosage, an amount that a therapist might prescribe him. Is it possible that instead of prescribing him his usual dosage of Prozac, his therapist was paid off by Jan to prescribe him a different drug? Maybe the therapist was in deep, in debt, late on his fees for the building, at risk of losing his apartment altogether. Jan anonymously steps in and says, listen, I'll give you this money if you just give me these drugs. Or if you just give Tim Kono these drugs and say that they're his usual medication. So there's two options here. Either Jan paid off Dr. Grover Stanley to give Tim these drugs directly, and Tim took them and went upstairs and died because of it. Or more likely, because I doubt that Dr. Grover Stanley would have known that that would kill Tim. More likely, Jan approached Dr. Grover Stanley anonymously and said, I will give you this much money, but you have to give me these drugs. And the good doctor didn't know what those drugs were for or what this person was doing with them, but he was so desperate for the money and he knew he had the power to write these prescriptions that he just gave it to them, to this person anonymously, because he needed the money. He was desperate. And so that day, Tim could have either been at therapy, taken these drugs and gone upstairs and died that way from poisoning, or Dr. Grover Stanley gave these drugs to Jan, although he didn't know it was her. Jan opened the capsule because secobarbital can come in a capsule form, and what is within a capsule of a drug? Powder. Dust. This powdery substance. Easy enough to mix into some sort of food or beverage. Then given to Tim. He doesn't know that he's been poisoned, doesn't feel the effects of the sedative until he goes upstairs to his apartment, starts to feel drowsy, have a hard time breathing, maybe has a couple of drinks before he realizes he's even been poisoned. And then, before he knows it, he's on the floor. Then Jan comes upstairs, knowing that Tim should have been poisoned at this time. She pulls the fire alarm, she goes into his apartment, she stages the suicide, types out the note on his laptop, shoots him, and walks away thinking that no one will know the better. The reason that I bring up the dust and the reason that I bring up the fact that within a pill capsule can sometimes be this form of dust is because we see that Winnie is poisoned with an extremely similar looking substance. And if Winnie is poisoned by this dust that presumably could have come from within a drug capsule, we can also assume that maybe this dust was mixed into Tim's food or drink. Whether that was directly, whether this was Tim visiting Jan, either knowing she's Angel, or maybe she invited him over for some reason. I'm not super clear on exactly what happened, but I think she mixed it into his food. He didn't know that this was going to happen. I don't exactly know how Tim consumed the poison, is my point. But my theory is that Dr. Grover Stanley is the one who prescribed it and provided the poison, and that Jan somehow got it into Tim's system via mixing it into some food substance or straight up paying Dr. Grover Stanley to feed it to Tim in some way. I don't think Dr. Grover Stanley would intentionally murder Tim like that, but I do think that he would sell drugs for money because he seemed like he was desperate. So that is the how of how it happened. So now we have the who, the how, the why, and the why now. So that leaves us with one more question, my friends. Who stabbed Jan? Who threatened Jan? The notes are a complicated subject because there are so many of them and handwriting is so specific and nitpicky that it's really hard to tell who wrote what. Part of my theory about who stabbed Jan comes from these notes. So I'm just going to concentrate on the 2 notes that I think are written by the same person. So, quiet please, recording. This note is written by Oliver. It's in all capital letters, but there is a note that looks like it has near identical handwriting to quiet please recording. And that note is, I'm watching you, found on Jan's door. So what does this mean? I'm saying that Oliver wrote the note that we find on Jan's door. Why? And you might be thinking, you're crazy. Oliver did not stab Jan. That's ridiculous. I agree. I don't think Oliver stabbed Jan. I think that after seeing the way that Charles was with Jan, getting frustrated that Jan was now being integrated into the group without his or Mabel's permission, seeing that she was so involved and so vocal against him, Oliver became frustrated. He became suspicious. He wasn't happy with the way that Jan was acting, and he thought that it was a bit unusual. He didn't like the way that things were going down, and there's a moment where he says, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna go get some dip, I'm gonna go get some dinner. And he exits his own apartment building, leaving Jan, Charles, Mabel, and Oscar inside to continue to chat about the case. Oliver leaves to go get food, and as he's coming back, he sees the superfans and he brings them back inside. Now, during all that time, we can assume that our other 4 characters are still in Oliver's apartment. Then Oliver and Jan have the argument. He asks her to please leave, and she exits. And what does she find on her door after that? After Oliver's been out for a few hours? This note that says, I'm watching you. I think that Oliver, protective of Charles, suspicious of Jan, concerned about her involvement in their group without his say-so, wrote a note saying, I'm watching you. Because in all honesty, he wasn't trying to threaten her. He had no intention of injuring her or anything like that. He just wanted Jan to know that he was watching her, that he had an eye on her, that he was going to protect Charles if need be, that he was going to protect his podcast, and that he was suspicious of her. So he wrote this note and he planted it on her door. Jan found it and was surprised by this. She went into her apartment after being dismissed by Charles, who sided with his group over her, and she was upset. So that's where I think the note comes from. So then this leaves us with the final question. Who stabbed Jan? I believe that Jan stabbed Jan, and here's why. I know some of you are probably like, no, you just hate Jan for some reason. I don't know why, I just have this gut feeling. I think that Jan stabbed Jan, and here's why. So we know that Jan has mentioned before how she hates coming in second. It's happened before with her sister, it's happened before with an ex-partner, and it has now happened again with Charles. He has chosen the group and the relationship that he has with this group over her, and she is not happy about it. Not only is she not happy about it, but it has the potential for hurting her business, her income, and she wants to pull Charles back to her side. So how can she do this? So the best way for Jan to get attention is for her to be injured, supposedly by the killer. This takes all suspicion away from her because they are not thinking that she stabbed herself. They're thinking that someone came in and stabbed her. I mean, she planted it to look like that. She had her groceries strewn all over the floor. She's laying there. She's got the bloody spot in her side. Charles comes in and he's desperate to help her. He's screaming, Jan, 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 are you okay? He's been texting her all morning. So I think that Jan, out of anger for coming in second again, knowing that Charles is going to choose his friends over her, in a desperate attempt to gather his attention and pull him to her side again, she stabs herself. Not only to pull Charles in, to have him nurse her back to health, take her side over theirs, protect her, think that a killer is after her and feel responsible because he's the one who was doing the podcast in the first place. All these things would make him feel guilty and make him dote over her. And it would also make her seem innocent. And that is the most recent 2 episodes, episodes 7 and 8, and a consensus of the whole series. So if you liked this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all those YouTube-y things. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I love to hear about your theories. Obviously there are going to be clues and theories that I have missed, so drop them down below. I love to hear them. Make sure to follow me on Instagram if you're interested in things like that. If you want to see another video about Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, then comment it down below and maybe I will do a series finale review or one last guess before the final episode drops. Anyways, I love you all. I will see you next week with another video. Thanks for the support. Bye!